Hello, everybody. I'm George Larrimore. This is Vietnam 360. If this is the first time that you've joined us, we're glad to have you with us today. This is a show for and about Vietnam veterans. We feel like at this time in history, it's an opportunity for us to look back and talk to Vietnam veterans about their stories, about what happened to them during the war, and about what happened to them when they came home and since they came home. And that really is the topic of the show today. What was it like coming back to America in the middle of this war that was very divisive for the country? My guest today are Ed Stutler, who was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam 1966 first, and Andrew Rosser, who was in Vietnam in the Army. With the 25th Infantry Division. Let me just start out with you. I'll start with you, Ed. Okay. How did you happen to end up going to Vietnam, or how did you end up in the Marine Corps and then going to Vietnam?
Well, I had to pass my draft exam, so I knew I was going to get drafted. And I didn't have a desire to join the Army. And I was talking to a Marine recruiter, and his comment to me was, "You're going to Vietnam. Do you want to come back alive?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "You need to join the Marines." So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They let me go to boot camp in California. So I said, I'll go.
Come back alive by joining the Marine Corps. I'm not sure that would necessarily make a lot of sense.
It did back in those days.
We were young then.
Young, yep.
Andrew, tell us how you ended up. You were a draftee.
Yes, I was drafted in April of 1968. From the day of induction, I did boot camp at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. From there to Fort Polk, Louisiana, where I did my AIT training, which is advanced infantry training. And from there I got a 30-day leave, and from there to Vietnam.
Now, tell me what it was like when you first heard the words 11 Bravo, which is the infantry MOS in the Army. When you heard that you're an 11 Bravo.
It was disheartening, to really be honest. I had a college degree and thought that I had clerical skills and knew how to file, type, and those type things. So I thought some consideration should have been given for my college education. But in talking to one of the officers, he said he understood the fact that I did have a college degree, however they needed targets in Vietnam, so unfortunately I was a target.
Oh, that's a harsh way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah. Really?
It was reality.
Wow.
Ed, what did you do? What was your MOS, your specialty when you were in the Marine Corps?
When I left boot camp, they sent me to, I became a 3051, if you know where that was, that they call a general warehouseman. And but when we packed up and moved to Vietnam, they explained to me that we have no use for a general warehouseman over here. And they sent me up to a place called Chu Lai, which was like 50 miles south of Da Nang at the time. There wasn't really anything there. They had a beach mat runway, and that was pretty much it. They had some tents set up. So what we ended up doing is we were in March of '66. The Marine Corps set up kind of a temporary outfit. They started one in Da Nang, one in Chu Lai. It was called Force Logistics Support Group Bravo in Chu Lai and Alpha in Da Nang. And their mission was, because this war was a little bit different, in that we had operations going on in the field all the time, we had to continually run sea rations, ammunition, et cetera, out to the fields. And that's what our job was going to be. Either truck it out there, helicopter out there, whatever we needed to do is get it off the beach in Chu Lai and get it out to the guys in the operations.
And there was no, in Vietnam, as everybody knows, there was no front line.
No, there was no front line. Front line could have been about 10 feet in front of you.
Andrew, you got to Vietnam in 1968. What month was that?
October of 1968.
And where were you stationed?
I was stationed at Cu Chi, which is about 25 miles out of Saigon.
And what was if you can recall, what was your first impression when you got out to the company? You were in the 25th Infantry Division. When you got out to the company you were assigned to, what was your first impression of Vietnam?
My first impression was it was a tone of fear in that you'd heard a lot of Army stories and what have you, and the first assignment in an infantry unit was as a new person was to walk point, and the point is a person outside of the rank and file that's walking away from the troops to detect any enemy or landmines, if possible. And I guess you may say, thank God I was so poor at performing this task that from that day forth they put me back in the ranks, and I never had to do that again. So I was blessed in that regard.
For people who don't know, the point thing is usually reserved for the new guy.
It is.
And
Yes.
what does a new guy mean?
New guys, one new in country, just what it says, new, no experience, don't really know what to expect other than hearsay, what they've been told, and some of the older fellas there will rib you up and tell you, well, you got to be careful and all this. Well, that was the first thought was be careful. So,
with new guys, a lot of the times people would say, well, I'm not going to get to be friendly with him because he may not make it. But the assumption with the new guys, you don't know anything. So if
That's
something
correct.
bad's going to happen,
Yeah.
Better chance it's going to happen to you.
right. That you're just a rookie and, you really don't know anything.
Is that the first time in your life you ever felt expendable?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, you kind of feel like you're out there on an island all by yourself, because as walking point, you are out there by yourself and, looking for any suspicious activities.
And it's a lonely feeling, isn't it?
It is, very.
Ed, so we were talking about the fact that in the Vietnam War, there were no front lines, and I think perhaps you have this sensation when you see about what's going on in Afghanistan, that these guys in vehicles, guys in tanks, guys in armored personnel carriers, getting blown up by devices on the side of the road. That had to be in the head of truck drivers like yourself at the time, because it's always something there that you don't see.
Every time we pulled out of Chulai to go out on a convoy or something, as you pulled out of the base, we had like 3 blown up trucks parked there that we hauled back. And the captain said, we just put these as a reminder of what you're going out to. Because there were rules you always went by. We had ontoses that led the convoy most of the time. And, we had one rule: if a truck gets hit, push it off the road, because you got to keep going. Because if you're going to hit one, they're going to hit another. So that's what we did. We had to keep moving no matter what it was. And it wasn't always bombs on the side of the road. We got hit. We took fire from villages, from tree lines, from about anything you could imagine.
Try to, if you can, recall what it was like the first time you felt gunfire aimed at you.
What did I feel like? Panicky, unreal, like I wasn't really there, like it was a movie happening around me and I'm trying to run or hide or do whatever. I don't know how else to explain it. Panic.
How about you, Andrew?
My first experience was the platoon sergeant was cautioning everyone to stay off the dike, because they were booby-trapped.
That's in a rice field.
Right, in the rice field. And I guess maybe about 30 seconds after he said that, and he turned to get off the dike, he hit the booby trap, and I saw his body go maybe about 6 feet in the air. And that was a very, very frightening experience. Matter of fact, the first time I'd ever experienced anything from the enemy at that particular time. And being a Southern boy, I was remorseful and, thinking that, well, maybe they're going to have some type of memorial service, something. And one of the other fellows that had been there in country maybe about 4 or 5 months longer than I, he said, well, this is the Army, just get ready for this. You're going to see more of this. And unfortunately, I did see other incidents, but that one particular time was mind-boggling, and it was an awakening as to what to expect from that forth, and always in the back of the mind to be cautious as to what you were doing as an individual and others that you could help around you.
Did you get used to it? Did you get used to, or did you find a way to? Obviously, you had to find a way to function within that framework of being afraid.
Well, it's. I don't think it's safe to say that you actually ever really get used to death at any state of mind, but as it occurred, it became more acceptable. It was just a thing that I could expect that from time to time, and it didn't trouble me as much in months to come as the first time that I witnessed such.
Tell me about your experience. Where you'd gone through some pretty strong training, boot camp in the Marine Corps, and just being around people in the Marine Corps conditions you to an extent in terms of, well, you can expect this and you're going to have to focus on it and deal with it. Did your training help you to get to where you could handle that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it really did. I mean, I kind of knew what to expect when I got to Vietnam. We had DIs and instructors back in San Diego that had been there already, and they were real good on leading us about what to look for when we got there. We got to Chulai, and it was like, I guess it was mentioned before, being the new guy, it's like the first sergeant told me, he said, it's going to take a while for these guys to get used to being you around because they're not sure you're going to stay around. And his comment to me was, you stay around me and you're going to be all right. He had been in Korea and World War II. And I did hang around with him quite a bit. But we did get used to a lot of things. Chulai, in building the base, was getting hit about every night. Now, not all of it was accurate. A lot of it fell short. There's rockets that didn't make it in. We were still trying to build perimeters out from the beach. But I mean, actually, you get used to that, thinking that they're not going to hit us. It's that close. They're not going to get in here. They never do, right? And then comes the time when they sneak under the wire and they sneak at the end of the beach mat room when they start blowing up jets. And I was sound asleep when the first jet blew up. Sound asleep, laying on the cot. And an officer came running through the tent and said, get the hell out of here. And I actually had to grab my rifle, and it took me 20 seconds to figure out what was going on and where to go to find a hole. And when we didn't know where to fire. We didn't know where these people were. They had actually stripped down naked, come under the barbed wire. It was a suicide mission. They just wanted to blow up jets. They knew they weren't going to get out of there alive. But we didn't know who they were, where they were, how many of them there were. So it was like freeze.
Andrew, I want to ask you about, there's an expression they call the fog of war, the confusion that goes on, that you know as a grunt, you know what you're supposed to do. You know how you're supposed to react when you get hit. Can you try to give us a sense of what it's like and how it is to function when you're in a firefight?
Well, I guess the closest simulation to an actual firefight was like my AIT training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. General Westmoreland had said that was the closest simulation to Vietnam training that one could prepare. So, having gone through the training, firing rounds over your head when you running the obstacle course and things like that. So, I was pretty much prepared and had a good idea of what to expect once I got in country.
That's AIT is advanced infantry training. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now you eventually became a radio operator. Is that correct?
Yes. It was RTO, radio telephone operator. It was a little backpack with handset that had communication back with the command post when we were out in the field. So that was designated for the platoon leader, and I was, I guess, his backup assistant. I had the radio and could, call in additional help, firepower, what have you, with the RTO.
Medevac?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And you had an antenna on your back.
That's
And you're
correct.
standing next to an officer.
Correct.
Neither of which is very good.
That's correct. All the above.
Ed, tell me, just if you can, again, we hear and see about Vietnam and combat, etc. But tell us what life was like for you when you were just down, when you had downtime. What was your experience like back then? What were you doing?
I'm trying to think of what downtime would have been.
You're kind of on all the time.
It was kind of on all the time. There really was no downtime. In the 13 plus months I spent there, I never saw a city. We saw little villages. We saw rice farmers, but we never once made it to a city. So there were no stores. Back in those days, we had very little communication. There was no phones. There was no radio. There was no television. The only newspaper you ever got once in a while was Stars and Stripes. But we were busy constantly. I mean, there was no downtime. I mean, if you weren't humping supplies out to the field, you were getting supplies in on the beaches, you were moving product all the time. It was a full-time job.
Ed, you mentioned before we started that you feel like Vietnam veterans or the Vietnam experience for America doesn't include enough talk about the positive things that America did in Vietnam.
Well, I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I guess where I got that from, I was watching Ken Burns' documentary and discussing several issues with other Vietnam veterans on a webpage that we have. And a lot of the guys felt the same way I do. The documentary, although it told the truth, it didn't tell the whole truth. It told a lot about the negative things that the Americans did in the country. It didn't tell a lot about the good things that Americans did in the country. And we had doctors going out and helping kids. We had soldiers going out and helping families. We did a lot of humanitarian work in that country that never got talked about in the news. It's like the news is today. The only thing on a broadcast is what's sensational. And, crime and all that, that's sensational. You never hear the good news. And that's documentary did the same thing. They never saw the good news. We used to pull that trucks out of convoy, out of Chulai to go out on convoy. And the kids would come running up the trucks because they would want sea ration cans that we'd open up and hand them out sea ration cans in the back of the trucks. And they would have the biggest smiles on their face, I just wish there would be more positive on what we did in that country than there is negative, and I don't see that today.
What do you think? I mean, I don't know how much interaction you had with the Vietnamese people. I mean,
Well, we had similar contacts in that part of our regular duty was to sweep the main thoroughfare, which was electronic mine sweep to detect landmines. And along the way, we would see a lot of Vietnamese kids, and that's what they wanted, sea rations, any kind of little goodies that we might have to give them, and they were very appreciative of it.
did you, there was a lot of anti-war activity going on in the United States at the time both of you were there. Certainly more so by the time you got sort of to the end of your tour, and obviously at the time that you started on your tour. Were you aware of it, Ed, that what was going on in the States, and how did it affect sort of the morale?
I had no clue what was going on in the United States. We had very little news that didn't come from Armed Forces Radio. I had no clue what was going on back home. The only phone call I made back home happened to be on R&R from Hong Kong. And there was no television, no telephone service there. So no, I had no clue what was going on.
How much were you aware of what?
Well, I was a little more aware than Ed in that I had a friend. Well, neither one of us knew one another prior to our enlistment. Fella Frank Ditto. His parents had given him a subscription to the Memphis Press Cemetery. And once he found out that I also was from Memphis, he would save those subscriptions so that I, in turn, could read them and stay abreast of what was going on. They were probably a week or 2 weeks behind, but at least I had an idea about what was going on back stateside, and in conjunction with the Stars and Stripes.
So you were aware that there was activity against the war?
Yes.
And what did the guys in your unit talk about it? And how did it undermine you? What did it make you feel?
Well, the guys really didn't say anything about it, one way or the other. We all knew that we were there for a cause, and we were there rallying to that point. And it wasn't, that we took sides with the protesters, or we took sides. We were just there doing our job.
Ed, just tell me a little bit about the friendships that you made, the connections that you made with other guys. What was that like? What's it like to be friends with someone in a wartime situation?
I think it's a step above and beyond what you consider friendship is in peacetime. I probably made the best friends I ever met in my life in the Marine Corps. I lost my best friend in Chile when they got through the lines one night. He got shot in the chest down the hill from me, and two guys carried him back up the hill to where I was. That's one of those nights that burns into your memory forever. You just, it's there. It's never going to go away. It's something I think about daily. It's not the only one I saw, but that one was just so personal and so close. The friendships you make there are I don't know. When you got each other's back and you depend on each other all the time, it's a lot stronger than you find out here in the civilian life.
I assume that there were African American soldiers in your unit, or
Yes,
African Marines in your unit.
Yes, sir.
Did it change your ideas of what they were like as people by being in that kind of an environment with them every day? It's something that changed your life that still sticks with you.
Where I grew up, we were all the same.
Yeah.
It was the same in the Marine Corps when I got in as it was where I grew up at. The blacks and the whites were all the same. There was no open discrimination where I grew up. Of course, I grew up in the 50s. I went to camp with African Americans. I went to school with African Americans. One of my best friends was an African American from Chicago when we were in Chile. So, we were all the same as far as I was concerned.
Andrew, you were from the Deep South.
Yes.
A little different for you.
Mm-hmm.
How did being in the Army in Vietnam, did it open your eyes to what that was like?
Yes, there were incidents that did occur, and like Ed just alluded, my friend Frank Ditto, which is a Caucasian that I never knew prior to the Army. And he and I have stayed in touch over the years. We, every 4 or 5 months, we'll call one another up and say, well, hey, we hadn't had lunch or anything in a while. And we'll get together and go to lunch. We don't really talk lots about the Vietnam experience, but we just talk in general about things that are going on in everyday life. And for that reason, I'm appreciative of the fact that, there was a Frank Ditto there in my life now and then. We were in a firefight, and I'll never forget that they called in gas, and my gas mask was malfunctioning. I was choking, and Frank came back and got me, and just drugged me to cover. And I've never forgotten that. And we joke sometimes. Say, well, you saved my life, and we'll laugh about it.
And we're talking about coming home. When did you come home, and kind of what was your family reaction when you came home? What was the reaction from your friends when you came home from Vietnam? Ed, if you'd start.
That can be a touchy subject. I wasn't prepared to come home. I really wasn't.
You were not?
No, I mean, it seemed to me it was like taking me out of the jungle and putting me on the street. I mean, I had orders to go to Camp Lejeune. We came back into California. I did. And I went from there to LAX to get a plane on to Cincinnati. So, it was, how do I put this? I didn't really call my parents until I got to Cincinnati because I really didn't have any time, and I didn't know when I was going to get there. Because when I got to LAX, the girl was saying, you need to get down to TWA, get on this plane. And I did, and the plane landed in Cincinnati, and here I am at home. And I'm going, okay. So I call my parents, they come pick me up, and I go home. And in that instance, it was like nothing happened.
You mean like nothing had happened to you at all?
I mean, the next day my mother's words were, when are you going to get a job now? And I hadn't thought about anything. I was in an ozone. I was in no man's land. I had no feelings. I didn't know it at the time. I had no feelings. I was kind of numb, and I stayed that way for a long time. I didn't see protesters out on the street carrying signs. I had nobody come spit on me, but nobody talked about the war. Nobody asked me about the war. Nobody asked me. Nobody, I don't remember even anybody saying, "Welcome home," or "We're glad you're back." I went to try to see some of the guys I grew up with and went to high school with, or went to school with, went to their houses, and I felt so out of place. I don't know if I wasn't wanted there, or they were worried about having me there, or it was just probably just me not feeling comfortable with anybody. I didn't trust anybody. I probably don't today. And my wife says I don't anyway. But I was on edge continuously. So coming home was culture shock.
It sounds like it was more of a shock than it was when you went from the United States to Vietnam.
A lot more. A lot more. It was a lot easier going in with a bunch of Marines that you know than coming home and you're on your own, and here you are and nobody really cares.
At least you think they don't care.
Yes.
Yeah. Andrew, what was it like for you? If you just kind of walk me through it.
Well, that was this joke type letter that someone had constructed that say that he's coming back, and don't be alarmed if you hear a car backfire, that he take cover and may scream fire in the hole, incoming fire, some of that nature. That had circulated among some of my friends back here in the States. But when I did get home, I had a friend that lived in Los Angeles, so I stopped off in Los Angeles, and there was another fellow that I had befriended in Vietnam. He was already back stateside, and he was in Los Angeles, so I spent a day with them and spent the night, and then the next day I came to Memphis, and I intentionally took a taxi from the airport home, and my parents were not home, so I let myself in, and I surprised them when they came in, and it was just total elation, the tears of joy that my mother was shedding, and it made me feel good, and also gave me a sense of worth that I had spent 11 months and 25 days, doing something worthwhile. So to return home, it was a good feeling for me.
Today, do you have pride in having gone to Vietnam?
Oh yes, yes. Matter of fact, I've had on 2 different occasions to meet some Vietnamese, and not really sure. I'll ask them if they're Vietnamese, and they've said yes. And I told them about my experience there in Vietnam, and they were overly appreciative throughout the entire conversation. We thank you for your service. We thank you for your service. And this was on one occasion was a female, and the other occasion was a male that he was also serving in the United States Army, and he was very appreciative. So I feel good, hearing those type of accolades.
Ed, I want to ask you about the line "Thank you for your service," which we all often hear. And when someone says that to you at Veterans Day, what do you think?
I think the world's changed since the day I came back. I think the people that say that today are more genuine than they were in any regards back then. I think it's got a lot to do with what the American soldier has been through in Iraq and Afghanistan over the years since Vietnam. The public, I think, has become more aware that the soldier's doing his job. He's not part of the politics that are involved in it. And they see that, I think, and I think they really mean it when they say welcome home. I'm always kind of a loss to what to say. Sometimes I'll look at them and they look to be about my age or something. I'll go, were you in the service? And a lot of them will come back and say, yeah, I was too. And so you strike up a conversation, make new friends that way. But sometimes it was just something. I had a guy come up to me the other day that was just delivering garbage cans in the neighborhood, and he stopped by, and I was standing by the mailbox, and he went, "You in the Marines?" I went, "Yeah." I got a tattoo on my arm. He saw the tattoo, and he said, "Thank you for your service." And he drove on. This young man, about 20, He meant it. I could tell he meant it. You know things like that. So it's a nice change today to see that happening with the troops that are coming home today.
When you're watching a football game and you see the color guard come out and the flames fly over and there is this display of patriotism on television, do you have any sense that where was it for us?
Me?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm sorry. You should have said for Andrew.
Okay.
I mean, do you sense that they didn't think of us this way?
Well, not to that particular degree. However, I did encounter in flying to my next station, which was Fort Carson, Colorado, after Vietnam. I was on the plane with my uniform on, and the pilot came over the PA system and thanked myself and may have been one or two others on the same flight, thanked us for our services and offered us complimentary beverages, which from that point forth has shown that someone really cared, if not a majority. There has always been an element that has cared and has shown that they've cared.
I want to ask you both about veterans coming back and readjusting, and I also want to ask you about how we're portrayed so to speak. But Ed, I know you've been involved with veterans groups for a long time. What do you run into and realizing that by the nature of it, you're going to run into Vietnam veterans who've had difficulty? But what kinds of things have Vietnam veterans expressed to you in terms of how they've had to try to adjust coming home?
Well, I think a lot of them went through the same thing I went through. I did not fare well coming home. I was down at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and my attitude was, I don't give a damn about anything. And I knew it, and I didn't care. I had thoughts about going back, and then, matter of fact, the Marine Corps came to me after a while, and they went, we're going to assign you to a military police battalion in Louisville, Kentucky, near your home. They're not expecting you to show up. We want you to go home and get some help. So I went home, but I didn't get any help. I found my help in the bottom of a whiskey bottle, and that's where I stayed for a long, long time. And I have a lot of friends in Vietnam that did exactly the same thing. I have got a lot of friends in Vietnam veterans in America today that are still resentful about things that happened to them in the war, that are still very resentful against the Vietnamese people. And I'm like, he said, I'm not. I've been to, there's a big Vietnamese community in Memphis. They celebrate Tet every year, which is their Lunar New Year. And I've gone to several of their New Year celebrations. I've got along really good with them. They're really, really nice people. They're very grateful for what we've done. They still consider themselves South Vietnamese. They still consider themselves as that country's still theirs, South Vietnam. They don't even recognize North Vietnam or Vietnam as it is today. And it's kind of an amazing step. But Vietnam veterans have gone through everything you can possibly think soldiers could go through, particularly after the war.
Were there opportunities for you, or did you expect there to be doors open when you came back? You had a college degree and you served your country. And did those doors open?
Well, those doors didn't immediately open. I think I went through, after discharge in April of '70, about 2.5 years of part-time employment to make ends meet. And then finally, July of '72, I started working full-time for Internal Revenue Service here in Memphis. And from there, I acquired experience and got into the correction field, which I spent 33 years with the state of Tennessee before retirement.
And did your veteran status have anything to do with you getting work, and or it should hit?
Well, once I applied for civil service position as a honorable discharge veteran, I was given, I think, 5 or maybe 10 points, toward the test score. But if memory served me correctly, you had to at least make a numerical score of 70, and from that point they would add 5 or 10, I'm not sure what it was, to help you in the ranking.
I'd like to talk about how Vietnam veterans are seen, and we're probably less prominent in the media now than we were 25 years ago, obviously, because so much time has gone on. But Ed, from your point of view, just talk about sort of the Rambo notion of the Vietnam veteran, which is the Vietnam veteran who's got emotional, psychological problems, who is possibly prone to go off at any minute. And again, knowing, as you said before, the media likes what's sensational. Mm-hmm. But it seemed to me that Rambo portrait of the Vietnam veteran was very, very prevalent for a long time. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. It was very prevalent for a long time. Saw it in my own life. A lot of people were wondering whether I was going to go off like that, And I had discussions with people back then about, I'm okay or I'm not okay. I've had friends that have gone off. For the most part, it's a minority. I think the Vet Center helped a lot. The VA helped a lot. Vietnam Veterans America helps a lot. Getting involved in veterans organizations helps a lot. The fact is, a lot of that story, what you heard, wasn't really true. I mean, there was a few guys that, and there are today. There's a few guys that come back from the war and their mind's not right. They're still nervous. They're upset. They want to commit suicide. The suicide rate for veterans is fanatical. And they get holed up in a house and they don't know what they want to do. They have crisis intervention teams now with the police departments that go work with these guys and try to help them. So it was sensationalized back then. I think it was over-sensationalized at the time. Today, I think Vietnam veterans have a lot of respect today, I believe. At least I feel it out in the community. I think that's gone, people have drawn past that now, and they see today that we did what we had to do.
Andrew, what do you think? I mean, the way when we were talking before we started, your position, you seem to have adapted pretty well.
Yeah.
What about the guys that you know, and how have they adapted?
Well, I really hadn't seen anyone that was so far to the left that they needed crisis intervention and other super medical attention. But one of the things that I mentioned to you was the movie. I think the title of it was Saigon with John Wayne.
The Green Berets movie, yeah.
Yeah. It's just fictitious, but it did pretty well at the box office. For instance, you don't have helicopters to crash and everyone on board just get up and walk away. That's not realistic.
How about movies like Platoon? Did you see Platoon?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Do you feel like in the news, for example, and Ed alluded to it earlier, it seemed for a long time that the veterans that they would focus on would be the ones with problems. Do you think from your point of view that Vietnam veterans have been treated fairly in the news media?
Yeah, I think those that I'm cognizant of have been treated fairly. I hadn't been able to detect anything that was so far to the left that it was just outlandish. But that's just my perspective. Ed, what about
do you think?
You talking about today or back then?
Well, over the last 25 years, and basically, how has it changed, if it's changed?
I think while the war was still going up until about 75, they weren't treated very fairly in the press at all. I think that was probably true for a few years after the war actually ended. And it began to get better. Then there was this long phase of time when the Vietnam veterans weren't even basically spoken about. Now, with the soldiers that are out there in the wars today, people recognize Vietnam veterans more than they did back then, and they recognize it more in the public light in a positive manner, I think. I got to agree. I saw Platoon. I didn't think Platoon portrayed Vietnam that well. I thought the movie We Were Soldiers did. Of course, it was written and directed by people that were actually there to live through it. But I think today there's a positive attitude about Vietnam veterans.
And how much do you think Vietnam veterans and the way we were received has changed the way America looks at the soldiers and Marines in today's wars? Do you think that helped them because people perhaps realized that they didn't do enough to speak to us at the time?
I do, yeah. I think we paved the road for a lot of the troops that are over there today. In a lot of ways. We paved the roads through the Veterans Administration as far as being able to get them better health care. We paved the roads through the political organizations. There are people now realize the troops who are over there aren't the symbols of what they're against. They're there to do their job and come home. The disagreement the American people have today, I think they understand it's more politicians and not the military.
Right.
Back in those days, they grouped them all as one. If you're a soldier, you're a political, we're against you, we're against that. And that's not the case today. And I think that was lessons learned from Vietnam.
The draft, selective service. Andrew, you were pulled in by that, as
Right.
a lot of other people were. You don't have that now. Should we have some form of selective service or national service?
Well, I think yes. You need a base to select from in time of war. So yeah, there is a need for the, in my opinion, for the selective draft.
What do you think?
I agree with Andrew. I don't know so much as I would specifically say it'd be for the military. To me, I think there should be a 2-year mandatory period for all kids coming out of high school or college, whether they don't go to college or not. And whether it be in the National Guard, whether it be working at the Peace Corps, whether it be doing some kind of volunteer work that benefits this nation, that gives them the freedoms that they've got to live in today. It doesn't have to be military. It could be humanitarian. But I think a mandatory service for the country is a good thing, and I think it teaches responsibility and gives them a little pride and makes a better individual out of them.
And we have, I read a story recently talking about the percentage of Americans who've actually served in our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's a fraction. Mm-hmm. And those who are wounded or killed in wars are a fraction. So my impression is that we're not putting the American people in a position of understanding what the sacrifice really is and what it means. I mean, we tell people, thank you for your service, but a lot of those people, their children are not at risk. Their husbands and wives are not at risk. Mm-hmm. And in Vietnam, it was a little different than that. How has Vietnam changed you, Andrew?
I have always, and I guess it's a thing that on my bucket list, I'd like to just go back. I've spoken to the Vietnamese natives that tell me that it's changed, the city has changed immensely, that they now have buildings and factories and what have you there. Whereas back in the 60s, it was just a little rice paddy in a little village with little mud hut shacks, lean-tos. To that degree, I understand that it has changed quite a bit.
Now, how have you changed? I mean, in here, you're a veteran. In here, you've seen combat, which is the thing that the vast majority of people have no notion of. How's that changed you?
Well, first of all, my military experience changed me. Some things that I learned in basic training. One of the things was how to make your bed and use that hospital corner. I still use that, even though it's been 50 plus years ago. I still use that in my day-to-day lives, and shining shoes and those type things. That and another thing that the Army taught me was discipline. Respect for others, and as well as for yourself.
And how did serving in Vietnam change
I
you?
would say it changed my life dramatically. I think before I went to Vietnam, I was pretty easygoing, loving individual. my sister wrote a letter to somebody once when I came back and said he didn't come back the same guy he was when he left. And she probably knew it long before I did. I came back with I don't know, my whole perspective on life changed after Vietnam. You just go out and you see man's inhumanity to man, and it changes you. And you don't lose that. You know what people are capable of, and it's amazing. And you carry that with you all your life, and it affects how you relate to people, how you trust people, what you're comfortable with. I still deal with a lot of things today. You know, I'm not comfortable going to the grocery store today. I still don't do it. It's just those kind of crowds just make me anxious. Before the war, I was nothing like that, and I've carried that. I still carry it with me today. I stay close to the Marine Corps League. I stay active with those guys. They're guys. These are my friends. These are the guys I trust. These are the guys I want to be with the most. These are the guys I relate to. I still relate to the military people a lot better than I relate to civilians today. I guess I'll always be like that.
If you could go back to Vietnam, where would you go? You go back to where you served?
Me?
No.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I would go back to Cu Chi. That's what I was familiar with during that time, and just to look at the changes as I reminisce. Like I said, here again, you're talking about 50 years ago, but just to see the changes that have been made, and also I'm sure there's been a lot of progress, and the infrastructure has changed. So yeah, I'd like to go back to that particular area.
Ed, would you go back if you could?
Yeah, I think I would. There's a lot of Vietnam I'd like to see. I've seen some videos and some films done on Vietnam recently. And like I said, I never saw a city when I was there. I'd love to see Saigon. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Hue City. I'd love to see Hanoi. As far as where I was in Chu Lai, the only thing that's remaining there is the runway and the airport. They did away with everything else that was there. They tore it all up, like it didn't exist. And if you asked, I had some guys that wanted to go over there and visit there, and they told them, well, there's nothing there to see. But I would like to go back and see the country today, because from what I see in films, it's dramatically changed.
What else you want to tell us about your time in Vietnam or your life since you came back? Anything else you'd like to just say that people ought to know?
I would say that freedom is really not free.
And you fought for it?
Yes.
And people would say that the war was wrong. A lot of people said that at the time. A lot of people are saying that, still. What did you think when you came back, and what do you think now? Were we there for a good reason?
In retrospect, I would say yes. I was there for a good cause, and I see the sincerity of it when I talk to Vietnamese that were there during the time, and this particular lady shared with me the fact that her family had to leave in the morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning. They had a rice boat, a fishing boat at least, that they sold to a neighbor so that they could escape and get out alive. So, hearing things like that makes me feel good inside, knowing that there was some benefits from what we did during our time there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because for a lot of people, the Vietnamese in Memphis are in a way sort of invisible. They're within their own culture. They live around people who speak their language and know their culture. And we don't know their story. And what you're telling here really is saying there's a tremendous story there if we would just listen to it.
Correct.
So I'm glad we talked about that. I'm going to effort getting some Vietnamese people on this show to talk about that, because I think that's important too. What would you like for people to know? I mean, I've tried to ask you the questions that I think are that I wanted to ask, but I want to make sure I'm not overlooking anything that you want to talk about, Ed.
Well, I'm one of the believers that if you look at it today politically, we needed to be there. You know, I'm not one of these people that think we lost the war. I think you got to look at the big picture. In a way, we did stop communism. In a way, you know, it began the downfall of Russia. It began the downfall of the Berlin Wall. It began the downfall of politics as we knew it back in those days. And I think it made the world a better place, even though it was a disaster that it was. I think today we're better off for having done it. That's my opinion.
You're talking about the Ken Burns series, and you're watching that show, and you see the political stuff that went on. It's very disconcerting. And as much as people were critical of President Nixon, and for a lot of good reasons, he did get it finished. I mean, it took a long time, and we lost a lot more people in the interim between the time they started the talks and the time it ended, but they did bring it to an end. Do you think that the war had a value in the way that he's talking about?
Yes, I think it did. You know, to me, the way that the war was actually fought, I question some of the aspects of that, and one thing in particular was that there was a truce or an agreement between the United States and the Vietnamese that we would have a ceasefire to respect our Christmas Day. And, you know, it's just like kids playing. You know, we ceasefire for the respecting Christmas, and then on the 26th, we go back to war again. And, you know, the same thing was during their Tet. That was supposed to have been a ceasefire period that, you know, we weren't supposed to. But, you know, to me, if you can stop for that period of time, you could stop and negotiate forever a peace.
Okay. I want to thank both of you for being here today. It means a lot. And these conversations are part of a permanent record here at the Library Channel. Really appreciate it. And I'll say this, and everyone says, but I appreciate your service, okay? I hope you've enjoyed the show today. We're going to be on all the time. You look at the Library Channel schedule on the internet, you can find when this show and all the other good programs that the Library Channel produces, and when you can see them. There will be some information on the screen telling you how to get in touch with us if you or somebody you know would like to be on the show. We appreciate it very much on behalf of Vietnam 360. Thank you.